let's start with I am one of the regional vice chairs for the Fairfax County Democratic Committee. It's that leadership is split up into three, North, Central, and South. And so I represent um, for the coordinated campaign, the Franconia district, Mason, and Mount Vernon districts. I'm also the chief operating officer for Rooted Consulting Group, which is one of the I don't want to say only, but definitely the premier political consulting firm in Northern Virginia that is Black owned. Gosh, what else do I do? Also host of Inside Scoop, which is a program that airs on Fairfax Public Access channels. I say channels because just depending on where you are, it could be channel 10, it could be channel 12 or 15, depending on the county that you're in. But that's a show that focuses on politics, policy, community organizing, etc. So do a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
It sounds like a little bit of a lot of things.
Yeah.
You're really, really busy, which is why I'm extra glad that you could come with me tonight. You and I were having a conversation. Of course, I'm Finale Norton, and I am co-host of the Friday Power Lunch with Network Nova. So I am here every Sunday, and we're here every Friday, except for the last two, because we're getting ready for the Women's Summit. So we're pretty excited about that. August 22nd, no, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. So mark your calendars. So, hi, Janice. So glad you joined. See, Janice wanted to talk about socialism. So this is going to be perfect for her too. So we're going to get started because you and I were having a conversation. It was all over the news about the socialism and democratic socialists and are they communists? And you and I started talking about it, and we said, wouldn't it be great to have a conversation about socialism and how we are thinking about socialism and what we think some of the, I don't know, I guess I call them myths or some of the challenges that people think the Democratic Party is going to have with socialism. And you and I sort of think that maybe we shouldn't be having challenges. So why don't we just start with what socialism is?
Sure. I guess if I had to give my own definition, and
Yeah, give your own.
I'm gonna lean on you,
Hey, lean
but
on me.
essentially, just if we juxtapose it with capitalism, it's essentially just ensuring that citizens have more access or more fair access to capital, have more of an imprint on the economy and how wealth flows, essentially more of a fair approach to ensuring that people have access to wealth and being able to earn wages and that they're protected in that space.
I think that's exactly right. You know, the way that I would also add to that and describe socialism is this. First of all, I always say that if you were to ask some of the people running around what socialism is, I don't know that they'd be able to give you a definition. I think sometimes people know something in their head, but then when someone asks them to actually spit the words out, then it feels jumbled and not like they want it to. And I got a feeling that some of the folks on TV who are having a fit about socialism and, calling Democrats communists, that they're having an issue too. And I think that they are running away, scaring people from the word by drawing in another word that people don't even really know what it is. So I want to give the textbook definition of socialism. And I want to give it, and then I'm going to talk about what our Democratic folks are talking about with socialism. So I'll start with this: the fire department, our public highways, Medicare, public schools. Those are all things that we buy into, and that is basically socialism, right? Part socialism. The difference is, where do you draw the line? So if you were talking about a socialist country, everything would be owned. That we would have no say. There would not be these markets where if things were privately owned. They'd all be owned by the government, where everything was shared. That is not what our democratic socialists are talking about. They're talking about things that we all care about: healthcare, social security, public schools, our roads and infrastructure, the library, all of these things that we use. The difference is, where do you draw the line? And none of them have ever said that we want to take away from private ownership of these other things, these other markets, and these other businesses. We've never, ever said that. And so that is the difference. I don't know if you wanna say something else because I wanna also just read it because I wanna just do the 3 of them because I think it's just clarity. Communism, and you said something before we got started about that, and I want you to talk about that. Communism, the government or the collective owns basically everything. Factories, farms, businesses. There is no private property or market. Communism. Now, nobody's talking about that. None of these democratic socialists are talking about that. They've
Right.
not whipped that. The only people who have whipped that is the Republicans.
Right. And
And we were
specifically the
talking about
MAGA,
that.
yeah, specifically the MAGA Republicans. I think that, and I know that you're going to get into the definitions too, but I think something that people would do themselves a favor to remember when it comes to the term democratic socialism, that they focus on the democratic part of that. Meaning you have a voice. You have a voice. Voters always have the opportunity or the option to communicate how they want these systems, how they want their government, how they want their economy, how they want their financial systems to serve the public, whether no matter what your no matter where you may fall on the class system. So I think that's important to point out when it comes to democratic socialism. But also, just to your point of the fact that Republicans and specifically MAGA Republicans are the ones that are throwing that word out there, communism, and trying to use that word to cover up, what socialism is. But honestly, those who support Donald Trump and this current administration, what they're doing is essentially creating a pathway for communism where you don't have a choice, where the government rules everything. And typically speaking, or historically, nations that have implemented communist regimes are one party states.
Yeah. And so I'm gonna keep on going because that describes it. If you think about taking over TV, no free press, some of the things that we're seeing, and a lot of people aren't seeing them because they're just not paying attention. Those are the things that we should be really, really worried about. Doesn't matter whether you're Democrat or Republican or independent. What you see happening in MAGA right now, we should all be really worried. Now I'm going to do socialism because I want to be real clear about this. Socialism, public ownership or funding of key shared goods, comes in many forms, from Soviet state control to a public library. And I'll just keep on moving there to say that that's all. They control everything. Our democratic socialism is this: public health care, labor protections, funded education, social security, more of what rich democracies already have, not government ownership of businesses. That's what democratic socialism is. And so when people know and understand that so many things that we already take advantage of today is part of that. And as I said earlier, the question is just where's the line? Where's the line? And that's what we're talking about. Explicit join. Hi, Explicit. So happy to have you here. I want to ask you this, Alpha. We were having the discussion. Like, I was talking to someone over the last week who has been going to the Cleveland Clinic. And they were telling me all these wonderful things about the clinic and how, how much they take care of people. And so I came home and I Googled it and looked at the campus. And the clinic is amazing, amazing. And I thought about when we are talking about, democratic socialism, that's what it is. It is having these things. We fund these things. And if you think of the billions of dollars that's going into the war in Iran right now, that's not a war. Think about if our hospitals were all like Cleveland Clinic. Think about if our nursing homes, where people go after they are ill or need recovery or older, imagine what that would be like.
Your dog's agreeing with you.
Eh, Hershey agrees.
Okay.
That's that's Hershey. Anywho, but imagine if those were the expectations that we had. We should think bigger. So we're talking about democratic socialism like it's a horrible thing. And at the end of the day, it should say to us, let's hear these ideas. Let's figure out where we should spend money. And why would we not expect the very best when it comes to Medicare, to nursing homes, to hospitals? Why wouldn't we think and dream bigger about what's possible for us?
Totally agree. But the assumption there is that that's what our political leaders want. The assumption is that our political leaders, whether you're a Democrat or Republican or independent or somewhere in between, the assumption is that our political leaders want people to live longer, that they want people to prosper, that they want people to be healthy. And I think right now, there are some folks within the Democratic Party, really on both sides, that are kind of questioning that. But I also think this is an opportunity. I think the increase of Democratic Socialist wins is is a note, is a sign essentially to the Democratic Party saying, "Hey, people are wanting something different." And so when you said earlier that people are, talking about democratic socialism as if it's something as if it's something bad, I do think that comes from an uninformed perspective. And like you said, people need to take the time to learn. But I also think that democratic leaders who are kind of contributing to that rhetoric, they're shooting themselves in the foot. I think that taking, we could possibly take it, and this might come back to bite me in the tush, but I think we could possibly take a page out of the MAGA playbook. Essentially, we had I know, the Republican Party though they took this messaging to get those fringe votes, and they knew that there were some folks within the Republican Party that felt disenfranchised, that felt like they weren't being heard. So they took this messaging and said, "Hey, we represent you. We represent your best interests." And they pandered to their fears. And so you got the Republican Party and then you got MAGA inside of it, but they got those votes. So I think the Democratic Party could take an opportunity here and see that there are some folks that this democratic socialism is getting their attention. Don't let the Republicans get in front of it and label it as communism, but take this as an opportunity and as a note saying, "Hey, there are some Democratic voters right now that are not satisfied with the establishment. This is an opportunity to get those fringe votes."
Yeah, so listen at this. This is Richard, and he says, sounds like a mixed economy. Do we really need ideology? To what extent is socialist ideology used to attack on liberalism? In my opinion, individual rights, freedom, and responsibility is essential to a good and just and free society. I'm not sure that we are saying anything different, and I'm not even sure that we're really calling it an ideology. For me, it is just simply this, that any government that you have, there is a mixture of different, ways that we govern. If you think about some of the Nordic countries, they have, the best hospitals and healthcare, the best public, services, because they understand this. They understand that you have to have these mixed opportunities in order to get the very best. And when I think about a democratic socialist, we call ourselves all kinds of things. This is the whole issue around the Big Tent. There's progressives, there's moderates, there's the far left, there's all of this that make up the Democratic Party. I would say that the Republican Party is the same, except they have really been overtaken by MAGA. And I'm not even sure that most of them really would call themselves MAGA. They've just been, well, it is because the people who represent them in Congress and in the Senate have just given away abdicated all of their responsibility and whatever voices that they have. But I think what we're seeing here is this. If you were to just talk to people, because this is the thing, people aren't going around thinking this is capitalism, this is socialist, this is communism. Those are things that politicians put in their heads. Those are things that they talk about. If you ask everyday people, what they would say is this. Yeah, I believe that everybody should have healthcare, and it should be the best healthcare. I believe that everybody should have a good education and public schools should be available. I believe that we should have the best roads. I believe that our nursing facilities should be the best. Our hospitals should be the best. Everybody should be able to go into a library and pick up a book and read the book that they want to read, not the book that someone tells you that can't be in the library. So I think that an ideology is really something that we put into the system, and when I say we, I mean politicians. At the end of the day, if you ask people what they want, they don't care what you call it. They don't care. All they want is for you to deliver on the things that make their lives better. That's
Totally
what I
agree.
think.
I totally agree. I think we're talking I think communication is generational. I think that there are some of us that are more seasoned and we can have a conversation around ideology and say, okay, let's get down to the nuts and bolts of this and really figure out like what's the difference here. But I think if especially for the Democratic Party, if we want to get those younger votes, we have to be able to message to them and let folks know how are we different? How is this ice colder than what you've or how is this ice better than what you've been getting before. And if we have to call it democratic socialism, fine. And I think that the wins in New York and I think Colorado as well,
Mhm,
that's indication that, no matter if we want to use the word ideology, um, that we're changing parties, like whatever we want to call it, I think that's a message that for Democratic voters that people are looking for something different and we can't ignore it.
yeah. I think, when it comes to, healthcare, um
Hi, Nairi. I had to say hello to Nairi.
no, I saw I'm
Hmm.
glad you're here, Nari. When we started when you experience things, then you feel them differently. And I have experienced my mother-in-law in a nursing home, which we went to one after the other, trying to find the one with the best care. And there would be days that we'd go to visit. My husband would go to visit. She had had a stroke. And they've just put her food there, and she's trying to eat, so it's all over her. So we you have to go every single day. You have to go every single day. And then if you don't have coverage to pay, then they take your house. You have to sell your house, you have to sell everything. So not only does it disrupt the person who's really ill, but now the family in terms of a home that would be the thing that where they build their net worth, where they carry for their future, for their kids, is gone because someone had an illness. My sister broke both of her ankles. We had to go to a skill facility. We the insurance company decides how long you get to stay. So whether you're ready or not, they kick you out. If you have to go to a hotel, if you have nowhere to go. These are the kinds of things that people are dealing with. And so when they are dealing with them and you know that it takes away, they don't get a vacation, they have to choose. We sort of think that we don't know who these people are. But there are people in our everyday orbit that we see who are struggling with these kinds of things. And if you are a young person looking to buy a home, well, you can just forget that right
Right.
now. So someone has to speak to those things truthfully and honestly about how it all works because we've just been miseducated. And it doesn't just happen. We all have to be part of the education. We all have to be part of the process, and nothing happens overnight. So it's a difficult spot, but these guys are talking to people in ways that they hear and understand. I hear you. I feel what you're going through, and we're gonna try to fix it. We're gonna try to fix it. We're not
Absolutely.
perfect, but we're gonna try to fix it, and at least they hear that.
Right. And we have the resources. We have smart people. We have the money. We have the capability and the infrastructure is there until, unless, Donald Trump is allowed to continue to steamroll the pillars of our democracy. But one thing, for example, that I know that Fairfax County Democratic Committee is trying to do is to outsource essentially Democrats to congressional districts um, that that could possibly be flipped. And going back to what I said earlier about getting those fringe voters, this is an opportunity to get those union votes. This is an opportunity to get those votes that perhaps went to Donald Trump almost 2 years ago. But if they're going through health challenges, if they're going through challenges with the economy, those socialist programs, maybe not using that word, but explaining to them if they're fortified and if you have leaders in place that can help make sure you get those benefits, then why not support that? Approaching these topics, but just from a different angle. I think the opportunity is there.
Yeah. Janice says, I think many people are unaware who pays healthcare bills now. I looked up Cleveland Clinic's revenue, and 64% of it is from government programs, which is great. But just not but remember that so many programs were canceled. Research for cancer, this government that we have in place today did that. So I'm hoping the Cleveland Clinic stays intact. Explicit says Republicans ask, how can I help my rich pals get richer? Democrats ask, how can we help our educated middle class friends afford their lifestyle? DSAs ask, how can we help those struggling to get ahead, get more than just ahead? DSAs and Democrats need to absorb the best of each other. Could not say that better because you know, this is what this tent is about. If you're unwilling to hear other ideas, if you're unwilling to hear what other people have to say, if you're unwilling to accept diversity in your own party, what the heck are we talking about? And that is why it isn't all old, it isn't all young, it isn't all far left, it isn't everybody has to come together. No one is right all the time. And we could be so much better, so much smarter if we understood that no one had all the answers.
Totally agree. But, when we were doing research and when we talked earlier, um, I was talking about how the more di hundreds of years ago, well, we just celebrated 250 years of America's, inception, essentially. We started out with 2 parties.
Mhm.
2 well, we evolved soon after our birth of 2 parties of thought, and the decision point was the enslavement of people. Then we, got the Democrats and the Republicans. And I think when America was less diverse, when you just had um, um, the formerly enslaved and those who were property owners or those who were enslavers or white people, then those two schools of thought and the pendulum could swing between that. I think there was space for that. But I think the more diverse America became, women had the chance to vote. You had people from different cultures. You had the formerly enslaved that now had more access to capital and education. I think we're starting to see now that this two-party system is doing us a disservice. So now I have a question for you, Panel. Is this an opportunity, essentially? Is this an opportunity for America to finally get another party? The independent party has tried, but I think independents typically they end up, leaning in one direction. Then there's the Green Party that really hasn't picked up traction. But I think Democratic Socialists, as to Explicit's point, they're speaking to people who are just like, hey, I'm here. I'm willing to work. My family's been here. We want to contribute to the economy, but we want to be able to benefit from the economy that we're contributing to. And I'll just say this and then I'll let you answer the question. I think, in my opinion, the Democratic Party, if we were in Europe, would be at least 4 different parties.
Yeah, could be. So here's what I think. I think that I don't know what we're going to become. I know that what we are today isn't working. But I I have been surprised by some of the things that haven't been working. One thing is I think that we the people um have given too much power to the folks that we have voted for, and that it is okay for us to disagree with them. And it is okay for us to not agree with all the decisions that they made. I think that there is a way to disagree, and I think that they should be able to be comfortable enough to come back when people have voted for you and tell you why you voted in a way that seemed really out of step with the values that we say we have as a Democratic Party. I think that we owe people that. But I don't know what we're gonna become, and I'm open to it. I truly don't know. I would have never have imagined that we would have what we see today as MAGA. I would never have imagined that we would see, these, y people in these concentration camps and what we're seeing on TV with people being shot for protesting, books banned, reproductive rights taken away, um, diversity and inclusion made to be something awful, woke as a bad word. I would have never imagined that. And I don't think that that's party. I think that's people and ethics and values, and that is not a real party. That is something cruel. And I don't think that you have to be a Democrat, Republican, or independent to know when you see things that are wrong. So because this has been invited into our country, I don't know what it's gonna be. So it could be that this is the time for something different. I think that Democratic Socialists are part of the 435 people, and so based on where we fall, in November, we'll decide what kind of voice they have. And today, the voice that they have based on the things that they are talking about, Hillary Clinton in the '90s talked about universal health care.
Yeah.
I mean, the things that they're talking about are things that other countries already do really well. And we'd have to ask ourselves why a country so rich would deny people these kinds of services. So if you want to talk about democratic socialists, let's just talk about where the line is.
Right.
They're telling you what the line is. They're telling you we think unions should be strong. We think that healthcare should be strong, education should be strong. They think that these are all things that people should be entitled to in this country. So I'm not mad at anybody who votes for a democratic socialist or wants to title themselves that. Myself personally, I just call myself a Democrat, and I don't call myself progressive or any of those things. I just know that basically I know right from wrong. And I think if most people operated to explicit point for the people, understanding right from wrong, and that we're all individuals, but there are things that we have in common, that's the way I operate. So I will see what happens. It could, in fact, be what you say, that we're for different things or we become for different things. But you know who will decide it? We, the people.
That's right. I think so. I totally agree. I think that democratic socialists, they want to help the people, and I want to be clear because I wanted to come in here and speak from a neutral perspective, and because you just never know who's listening. But there's an analogy that I came up with a few years ago, saying, okay, when there were some people within our community that weren't quite sure how they were going to vote. And I said, okay, think about the three pigs. So you remember the wolf, and the one pig was given straw, the other pig was given sticks, and the other pig was given bricks. So, in my opinion, the Republican Party, specifically for marginalized communities and Black voters, is offering straw and sticks. Why? Because they know that you can't build anything with that. You can't protect yourself with those policies. The Democratic Party, not perfect, they at least give you the materials to protect yourself and fortify yourself. So I will say that I am a Democratic voter, but also recognize that there are absolutely opportunities for growth. And then I just want to challenge one thing you said, Finale. You said you said that oh yes, people know right from wrong. But there are some people, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, that said, the Bible tells me I have a right to own you. And you could not tell them that they were wrong. They really thought that they were right. And there are some people today, we don't even have to go back 100 years. There's some people today that feel that this administration is justified in killing quote unquote immigrants and quote unquote illegals, and I don't personally use that word, but that's the word that's used, killing these people in the streets, separating children from their families because they're here illegally. They feel righteous. They feel that they have righteous indignation. So I think having said that, we have to have policies in place and we have to have strong political leaders so that when people want to make harmful decisions in their righteous indignation, there's something to stop them and to protect marginalized communities.
I could not agree more. I was going to say to you earlier that what's been surprising to me is what we see. And I was having this conversation with someone, and I said, when you read about the Pope who's talking about this country and how we should be treating immigrants and people who have less, and then you read the comments, and people are like, they just don't care. I feel sad and sorry for the families of people like that who are so cruel and so horrible. And it just takes me back, and you're right. So we have that's why we are supposed to have leaders who have the hearts, uh, to make the right decision, who inspire people, who can, change the hearts and minds of people to wanna do good and right. And that's what we look for in leaders. You have to sort of question folks who, y you know, it is not propaganda to talk about the things that the Republican Party has done or has voted for or the things that they have talked about. It is not propaganda to talk about what the President of the United States says on TV in front of your face. That is real. What he's saying is real.
Right.
What we know is what spaces we're living in and what we see. What we know is people who are immigrants, who are friends and neighbors, and what they're going through. That is not something fake, that is real. And we have people on the Republican side who are silent. who say nothing, which was the same way it was in the civil rights movement. That wasn't propaganda. That wasn't anything but cruel, horrible stuff. And what Martin Luther King has said, which is what we should say about anybody who feeds on this kind of cruelty, is that's why we need people in office who are brave and courageous to be able to call these things out. I say all the time, this vote that we're taking in November isn't just about groceries and gas.
That's right.
It's not just about groceries and gas. It's not just about getting affordable housing. It is about preserving what we believe is a democracy, which is people being able to have a vote. What the Republican Party is saying today, and we have a president who's saying, let's vote on the Say That. You can read the Say That yourself and recognize that someone like me, who changed my name when I got married, if I didn't have a passport and I needed to go and register to vote, I wouldn't be able to. That's real. So these things that we're seeing are real. But it brings me back to what I always say about Martin Luther King. We can't make these people like us. There are evil, horrible people in this country today that many of us forgot about because they were sort of in the shadows. And what MAGA did, what Trump did was, to your earlier point, was to bring out their fears. Black people are
Mhm.
scary. Immigrants are scary. They're taking your jobs. They're taking your health care. They're taking your all of these things. M Maybe they were taking some, but I don't think that any of us were losing our jobs because of it. I think the things that they were doing were probably more beneficial in terms of putting into Social Security that they would never get, paying
Mhm.
taxes, and all of these things that they would never benefit from. And so I think that at the end of the day, what King is saying is, you don't have to like us, you don't have to love us, but we have to have people who are in office who appreciate and understand that people are equal and they get equal treatment and schools and healthcare and all of the things that you want to do. You don't get to not do it because you're transgender or because you're black or because you're an immigrant. That's what equality is, or because you're a woman.
Right.
So I think that's what this really is all about, is freedom. And are we gonna choose a country that is free? And are we gonna let, people say socialism and it's horrible, or liberalism, or MAGA? Your actions will say who you are and what you're doing.
Mm.
And what I always say is, nobody is trying to take my job away. Democrats aren't doing that. Democrats aren't trying to put, people in concentration camps and separate from their children. They're not trying to take away Social Security and Medicaid and all of these things. This is all real. So I just think it's going to take a minute, but we need as many ideas and as many voices as we can. And I'm hoping that our party is open to listening to those ideas.
Absolutely. I think that they're gonna be more open the more we have these conversations, the more they know, like, "You know what? Banal and Alpha, they're gonna be watching everything that we do, so let me come correct." So I think the more we have these conversations and the more we seek to educate our community so they can make informed decisions come November and then even after November, and then encourage people to be involved in the civic process, then that's gonna call those leaders into accountability.
I think so. We Richard is having a lot about propaganda. He says it's everything we use to make sense of the world. And I didn't look up the definition of propaganda, but I I'm not really thinking about propaganda as much as I think about truth
Right.
and facts and information. And that's what we are required to do. That's what politicians are required to do. And I think the most use of propaganda as we know it has not been used to be in the interest of people. That it's usually been used to not get people going in the right direction. I mean, we have truth, and we have what happened in the beginning of the Trump administration. Kellyanne Conway said there are alternative facts. That is propaganda.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think proper so to your point, Richard, yes, propaganda is in everything. If you like Coke, if you like Pepsi, if you like Ross more than TJ Maxx, it's because of propaganda. But I think the difference when it comes to civic engagement, yes, propaganda, the purpose of it is to incite your senses, is to invoke an emotional response. But when it comes to civic engagement, your responsibility and our responsibility as participants is to have an informed decision, and I think that over the past maybe 50 years, we've gotten used to our political system due to media, due to television morphing into the radio, morphing into the internet, morphing into streaming, feeding us information, I think many Americans have gotten lazy. 75 to 80% of Americans get their news from social media. That is scary. We don't do our own research and make sure even though we're on social media now, I mean, I recognize the irony of that. But we do our make sure you do your own research. Go to the school board meetings. Go to your local government meetings. Do your own research. When Trump says something crazy, when a Democrat says something that sounds kind of insane, do your own research and you take that information with you to the ballot box. Don't take propaganda with you. If you feel like something isn't right, don't stop there. Make sure you go to the ballot box, but don't be given to propaganda. Now my baby's
This is
one.
your baby. So we got dogs and fire trucks. We got everything
Right.
happening tonight. So, explicit. So I'm glad there's been really good conversation here, Richard and explicit. All of you guys, we really appreciate Janice because that's what we want it to be. So we can have a discussion about this. And I think we all try to persuade. I like to think we persuade with facts, and stories so that people understand what we're feeling. We all know what we use, right? We all know what we get. When you get a check in the mail, you know that. When you work and you get paid, you know that. When you get Social Security or Medicaid or Medicare, you pay for your medicine, you know that. When something happens and it's not good, you know that. So that's real. And I think that's where we can persuade people through reason and through facts and through evidence. That's what critical thinking is all about. And we can't lose that. And then that's where you get the opportunity to be able to understand what's propaganda and not real
That's
versus
right.
what's real and what's actually happening to you, what you're feeling. And I think that's what those folks voting Democratic Socialists, uh, you know, I would say to you, I challenge anybody to go to do this, to ask anybody that you see on the streets, 10 people, and say, "Hey, can you tell me what democratic socialism is?" I
Mhm.
doubt they tell you, and would be able to, and I would doubt if they told you if you said, "Hey, you know that library where you go get all those books from, and you can get them for free, and you can just take them out and go look at them, and then you can bring them back? What do you think that is?" Yeah, they go, "Oh, well, no, that's a part of socialism." So I think that we just have to stop making it a bad word.
Right.
So that would be my one thing today to take away is stop making it a bad word. Go look it up. Look up democratic socialists. If they want to separate themselves to say, this is who we are and this is what we believe and this is how we fight for the people. It is 4 or 6 of them out of 435 and whatever is going to be the democratic number. They get to be heard. There may be opportunities when they get to say, oh, you guys need 3 more votes. Well, here's what we're going to need to give you those 3 more votes.
That's
And
right.
so that will be how this is all played out. But I think that I would ask us all to just stay informed, think about what you want to say about socialism when someone throws it in your face, and just say, oh, let's just talk about that. Because
Mhm.
I hope anyway, through the conversation that we've had tonight, that you guys feel comfortable enough if you were challenged with it or bothered by it or were thinking that it was something really horrible that it's not, and we should tell our leaders, our congresspeople to stop making a big fuss out of something that they should be embracing in terms of not just because of ideology, but because of the ideas that they're gonna bring to the table, which what people are asking for.
Absolutely.
So we've gone 40 minutes and we're supposed to go 30 minutes. So, Richard says, "We're easily triggered because of propaganda. We feel righteous, but it's vital wait a minute. It's vital to accurately understand the other side." Yeah, yeah, we're working on that because, you know, we MAGA. I mean, I'm always very curious. I want to know why you don't think everybody having health care is a good thing. I wanna know why you think that banning books is good. I wanna know why you think embracing white Christian, nationalism is a cool thing to do. I wanna know why you think that there can't be a humane way to get children, to separate children from their families or to get people out of the country, that there's not a humane way for us to think about deportations or to think about how people come into the country. I want to know why you think that diversity, equity, and inclusion is a really terrible thing. I want to know why you think that women shouldn't have the rights to make decisions about their own reproductive health care. So I'm really interested in understanding the other side and why they can't mind their own business.
Mm. You give so much more grace than I do. I don't wanna know. I kn I know that this coming from, a hateful, misogynistic, um, uninformed perspective. I shouldn't say I know, but I'd be willing to bet my favorite pair of red bottoms that that's where that's where that type of thinking comes from. So yeah, but anyway, I think that's
Yeah,
it.
so see, I wanna know, you don't wanna know? We're good. So,
We're good.
Alpha, thank you so much for this evening. I really appreciate it, and thank you guys for joining us. Howard just came in. Look, he's giving us facts. FDR was a democratic socialist. I know, and think about the wonderful things that we have today because of that. We just have to remind people. Um, there are just so many smart people out here, and if everybody gets involved in this democratic process, which, by the way, I have a really great program I'm gonna tell you all about. I'm gonna tell all of you about it too. We can all do it, and it's gonna be great. It's how we're gonna get past all the billions of dollars that they will throw into this election, but I got a plan.
I'm excited to hear about it.
I know, I know. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. Alpha, thank you so much. We'll chat
Of
soon.
course. Yes.
Good night, everybody.
Night, everyone.
Good night.